Hi and welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you my guide on how to get your dog used to wearing a muzzle. Not just used to wearing a muzzle, but actually happy to wear one. Now that can be a real challenge for dogs such as Chase, my own dog, who had quite a difficult relationship with the muzzle. He really didn't like wearing it and would fight me to put it on, run away whenever I would pull it out. And then if I did try to actually put it around him, I would often get some snarls and snaps and him telling me he's very uncomfortable wearing it. I did try to desensitize him a while ago, but it still didn't help. He was very uncomfortable. Now, I worked really hard on building up his tolerance to the muzzle about a year ago, and it did work, and he was a lot happier wearing it when I needed to. And then recently we have been traveling around Europe, and there's been some instances where we've had to wear a muzzle. For example, it's mandatory on public transports in Austria, where we were recently. So we had no choice but to muzzle Chase. And it'd been a little while since I'd kind of built up his confidence and tolerance with the muzzle. And he just had a bit of a freak out, didn't want it on. Not great when it's mandatory and we had a bus to catch. So kind of knocked his confidence wearing the muzzle. So what I'm going to do is share with you today the steps I'm going through to rebuild Chase's confidence and tolerance wearing the muzzle. And hopefully that will help you too. So keep watching. Okay, so to start with, I've just grabbed Chase's breakfast for the day. So this is his dry kibble food. If your dog is not very food driven, then you may need to use high value treats during this training, but make sure you use really small sized, bite-sized treats because we need lots of repetition. So lots of repetition and giving lots of treats while we do so. Chase is very food driven, so he will work for his breakfast, but I will also repeat these exercises with some super high value food as well. Okay, so the very first step is, now I started this just yesterday. So initially, up until yesterday when I did some of this training, as soon as I got the muzzle out, he would just run for the hills and didn't want to be near it. Now I just went through kind of the first couple of steps here and then realised I should be sharing this as a guide for everybody. So you can already see he's happier being around the muzzle, which is the first step. So what you want to do is have your food ready and your muzzle. And then what we're going to start is just simply placing the muzzle on the ground. Now, if your dog is very uncomfortable and doesn't want to be near the muzzle at this point, then just use a lead or something to just keep them nearby. We're not forcing them towards it. We've just got to be patient and take our time with this. Let me just make sure that the muzzle's in view there. Okay, so muzzle on the floor. We're going to take a handful of food and we are literally just going to scatter this into the muzzle and just around the muzzle, and just let the dog, again, if they don't go for it straight away, just be patient and give them time and make sure you're using super high value food and just give them time to kind of eat that food and get used to putting their face near to the muzzle. We're not actually putting it onto their nose just yet. Now, again, if that is too difficult for step one, a way to make that even easier would be starting just have the muzzle around, maybe on the floor. And then maybe, so say I put the muzzle here and maybe the food is just a bit further away. We're not actually asking them to touch it or go near it just yet. So that would be step one. Just get them used to eating the food around the muzzle on the floor. Now I'm going to fast forward through some of these steps pretty quickly today. But just obviously this could be a whole session just by feeding the muzzle like that. And then the next step is going to be, once they're super happy eating from the muzzle with it on the ground, we're going to pick that muzzle up with our food in our hand. I'm just trying to get the camera right. And we're just going to place the food. Now to start with, I would have it just at the end of the muzzle. We're not asking them to put their nose all the way in. So almost what you could do is have your hand, let me show you, hand like so. And just put the food in your hand so they're not having to put their nose into the muzzle just yet, so you can see. So that would be the next step. And just get them really comfortable just putting their nose towards the muzzle. So I'll show you that again. So we're going to just place our hand just at the end of the muzzle and we're going to put the food into our hand and get them eating from it right next to the muzzle. Good. Okay, next step is push the food slightly further down. So again, we're going to have it in our hand and we're going to start to put the food into the muzzle. And you can see there Chase, oh, he's pushed some out, has actually put his nose into the muzzle there. There's no pressure. This is very much cooperative training. So we just want to give the dog time to figure it out and let them do it on their own. Okay, so try again. Waiting. And like I say, literally yesterday he wouldn't come near this. So it just shows from just one day how much this can really help to just rebuild his confidence. Okay, so from there, we just want to start feeding right at the end of the muzzle now. So what I've done with this muzzle, this is a scatter feed muzzle, which I find works best for Chase. And I've actually cut out a piece here so that it's easier for him to get food. So he still wouldn't be able to kind of bite or do any harm through here. But it does just mean getting food's that little bit easier for him. So now I'm going to start by placing the food outside the muzzle. So you can see this time the food is in my hand, and rather than feeding inside, I'm asking for them to put their nose in and I'm feeding at the end of the muzzle. So you can see that is practically all the way onto his face there. And he's much happier to put that in to get the food at the end. And each of these steps, I would say, is a session on their own, depending on how quickly your dog feels comfortable. If they start showing any signs of stress or they're maybe not willingly going straight for the food, then I would just go back a stage and just stay where you are for a whole session. And it's definitely more important to take your time and get this right. And they should be very enjoyable and enjoying having fun and playing a game essentially with the muzzle. We don't want to just rush this process. It's just going to slow down the end result. Okay, so those first few steps are very much just starting to feed through the muzzle and getting them used to and comfortable putting their head inside. Now what we want to do is actually start to drive them towards the muzzle. So we want them to see this and them to come towards it rather than us to just have to lure them with food. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to present the muzzle in my hand and I'm going to wait. So obviously, again, over a few sessions, if you've been doing those first few steps, they should learn that the muzzle is where the food comes to. So if we've already been feeding through the muzzle, now when I present it without food, they will probably go and investigate to see if the food is in there. And at that point, we can reward with the food. So it's just a slight variation. Rather than having the food there to begin with, we want them to drive towards the muzzle on their own, and then we're going to reward with food. So sorry, I shouldn't have had food in my hand then. So I'm just going to present the muzzle. So you can have it in your hand. So I'm going to present the muzzle, wait for him to put his nose towards it, and then I'm going to feed. And all of the rewards and all of the food come through the muzzle. So let's just get some distance there. So I'm going to present the muzzle, and then once he puts his head towards it, I'm going to feed into it. Now, it may not be, Chase is already familiar with kind of hand targets and things like that, which makes that a bit easier. But if your dog is going anywhere near and investigating and putting their nose even just towards it, like so, I would definitely be feeding, and again, feed into the muzzle each time. Okay, from there, I would really start to build some of this drive. So once they are every time we present the muzzle, they're putting their nose into it, and then we are feeding inside. So again, just increase the duration that their head is inside that muzzle. Then I would start to, I'm going to reward that just because he didn't take it out even when I removed the food. Good boy. Okay, so next we're going to start to drive them a little bit more. So come out of the way. Right, so we're going to actually just place the muzzle on the floor and see if they go to target it with their nose again. Again, no pressure. We're just going to see what they do. At this point, if all the foods come from the muzzle, they should investigate. Oh, you can't see it. Nice. And then again, so we're just going to wait for them to target, and then we're going to reward by putting food into the muzzle. It helps if between each repetitions you move the muzzle away, so it kind of resets and makes the muzzle more intriguing and exciting when it comes back out. So I'm going to put the muzzle down. I'm going to see if he puts his nose into it, and then I'm going to reward with some treats inside the muzzle. Oh dear. I'll just give him a second. I think he's trying to eat too fast. You are such a foodie, sometimes you don't even swallow. You good, Chase? Sit. You good? Okay, right, so I'm going to show that again. So let me just make sure you can see the muzzle on camera. So I'm going to put the muzzle on the ground. I'm going to have my food in my hand ready. I'm just going to let him figure it out. There it is. So he's seen where the muzzle is. He's trying to figure out what he needs to do to earn the food. And all I'm looking for is him to put his nose towards it. That was a paw, so not quite. Nice. And then I'm going to reward into there. Just going to make sure he's finished. I'm going to put it in a different position. Yes. And then we're going to drop the treats in there. Okay, so the next step from here is to just progress the duration that we're asking them to keep their nose in there before we reward. So again, I'm going to have some food in my hand ready just so he knows that he's working for something. I'm going to remove the muzzle away. I'm going to put the muzzle on the floor and I'm just going to wait. Good. And this time, so you see how straight away he kind of pulled it out as if, where's the food? And I withheld the food for a few seconds to see if he'd wait longer, and he did. He put his nose back in for a couple more seconds, and then I rewarded inside the muzzle. So I'm just going to move him out here. Okay, so again, nice. Again, this may take some time and patience, so just keep waiting it out and give your dog the chance to figure out what they need to do to earn the reward. Okay, so we've worked on having them comfortable putting the head into the muzzle. We've worked on some driving, getting them to target the muzzle. Now, from them to target the muzzle completely on their own without the food lure inside is a good sign that they're starting to be more confident and have a more positive association with the muzzle. So the next step is we're going to look to start to actually fasten the muzzle onto them. So for this, I would go back to one of the earlier steps. Let me just move you up. Okay, so we're going to put some food inside, and then initially we're not actually going to fasten it. So we're just going to hold the straps like so, and then we're going to let them eat the food inside. So maybe just one at a time. So let me try and get a better angle. Good boy. Okay, so as I said, I've got the muzzle here. It's open, ready to fasten. I'm going to drop the food inside, and I'm going to hold the edge of the straps, and then I'm just going to let them eat. Now that was a trigger for Chase. He knew whenever I would go to hold the straps, I was going to fasten it, and then he knew he was going to be wearing the muzzle. So it's important to just desensitize them to that step as well. So we're just going to hold. Now I do keep my hand just to make sure he's got the food initially, and then let go. Now I would do lots of repetitions of that step before we ever actually fasten the buckle. Now, to fasten the buckle, again, that noise is another potential trigger. So we just want to get them used to that. It's obviously at the back of their ear, so that can be slightly uncomfortable. So we're going to, and then feed. We're going to just clip near their ears so they can hear it, and then feed. And feed, and lots of repetitions of that. And then we're ready to finally fasten the muzzle and put it all together. Okay, so let's put a few drops of food inside. Let's fasten. Make sure the muzzle's already going to fit nicely, and then I always like to give some extra when it's on. Now at this point we're literally keeping it on for a few seconds the whole time they're eating and enjoying the treats. So there's no point where they were panicking and thinking the muzzle's on me, I'm not sure what I should be doing. They're just simply focusing on eating the food. So again, so we're going to drop some treats into the muzzle. We're going to fasten it around the back of their ears, and then we're going to straight away feed while it's on, and then while they're still eating we'll take the muzzle off again. And you can see Chase was very happy throughout that whole process. He didn't seem stressed at any point. Okay, now once we're at that stage where we can comfortably put the muzzle on them without any signs of stress, we're just going to start to increase the duration that they're going to wear the muzzle. So one of the key issues with Chase was he didn't like movement in the muzzle. So when the muzzle was on, he didn't feel comfortable walking. That's when he would start to try and paw it off. So we're going to put the muzzle on, and then at this point we're simply going to ask for a few basic commands. So I'm going to see if he can sit, And at this point, we just want these commands to be on the spot, so we're not asking for too much movement, and we're going to be rewarding with each time. So stand, nice, and then we're going to take it off. So again, keep it really short and sweet, and we're just asking for some slight movements. Okay, so from here, once we've built in some sit, some small movements with them wearing the muzzle comfortably, stand, then we can start to ask for some bigger movements, so maybe like a spin, which is, again, it's quite disorientating when they're not used to having this thing on their face. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable moving kind of in every direction, and we may need to guide them and lure them around for this one. So I'm going to go in the other direction, twist, good boy. And again, just keep it really short and sweet and lots of rewards. Okay, so all of those steps should have been spread over many different sessions every day, giving all of their food through the muzzle, make it super rewarding for them to be playing these games with you with the muzzle. And once we're at this point, we're ready to start to actually try and walk with the muzzle on. So I'm going to fasten it on. Same way that we've been doing. And then we're going to take our food, and almost every step we are asking of them, we're going to be rewarding. So we want to take it really nice and steady and kind of give them a treat to focus on as they're moving around. And this just gets them used to walking with the muzzle. Good boy. Okay, so you can notice as well, every time that I take the muzzle off, the treat stops. So we can see that he's kind of learning, well, when the muzzle on, the good things are happening, and when the muzzle's off, the food stops. So he actually starts to have a more positive association with the muzzle. The next step from there would simply just to be, keep repeating all of those. Don't always progress and progress and progress and make it more challenging for the dog. Sometimes just give them some quick wins. So sometimes after a tough session where we've kind of made some really good progress, I might just go back to just not fastening the muzzle at all and just feeding him it through the hand. So we're not always making it more challenging. We're giving them some easy wins as well. And literally, once you're at that final step where you can lure them around and walk with the muzzle, it would just take them for some short walks, even just a few yards outside of your house to begin with, and feed the whole time. And then we can start to phase out the amount that we are feeding them through the muzzle, because they're a lot more comfortable wearing it and they've already got a positive association with it. I hope that was really useful for you and your dog is a lot more comfortable wearing the muzzle. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below and I will definitely get back to you. And thanks for watching.